The room buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the warm shimmer of fairy lights. It was my birthday, and I had gathered close friends, family, and coworkers to celebrate with me. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, picturing a simple night full of joy and the comfort of being surrounded by people who genuinely cared. But the moment I stepped in, I sensed something wasn't right. My wife, Lena, looked distracted. Her eyes kept scanning the room, searching for someone who clearly wasn't me. At first, I brushed it off, assuming she was overwhelmed by the crowd. But then I noticed the way her smile kept drifting toward her phone, a smile that had nothing to do with the party or with me. And then I saw him. Her ex walked into the party, uninvited and surprisingly confident. The instant their eyes met, her entire expression shifted. She lit up in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She touched his arm lightly, leaned in far too close, and laughed at his jokes with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown me in ages. For a moment, I just stood there, stunned. At my own birthday celebration, my night, my wife was openly gravitating toward another man. People around us noticed, whispers circulated, and the humiliation settled deep inside me. I felt the sting of betrayal, the burn of anger, and a heavy wave of disappointment. But what surprised me most was my own reaction. I didn't explode. I didn't argue. I didn't chase after her. Instead, I realized something painfully clear. I didn't have to fight for someone who was so openly disregarding me. I walked to the door quietly, without making a scene. I stepped outside, where the cool night air swallowed the noise of the party behind me. The empty street felt more comforting than the crowded room I had left. As I walked, I reflected on everything: how much effort I had poured into our marriage, how often I had put her needs above my own, how many red flags I had ignored just to keep the peace. An hour passed as I wandered, letting my emotions settle. To my surprise, beneath the frustration, a strange sense of freedom slowly emerged. I realized I didn't need a confrontation to reclaim my self-respect. Sometimes the strongest response is to simply refuse to stay where you aren't valued. When I finally went home, I didn't return to the party. I went to my own quiet space, poured a glass of water, and thought about the road ahead. I knew difficult conversations would eventually come, discussions about trust, boundaries, and what respect should look like. But that night, none of that mattered. What mattered was that I had chosen dignity over drama. The next morning, messages began arriving from friends who had been at the party. Some were confused, others apologetic, and a few confirmed exactly what I had seen. But I felt no need to explain myself. My departure had been explanation enough. Lena's actions had spoken louder than any accusation I could ever make. Weeks went by. She eventually tried apologizing, offering excuses and explanations. But something inside me had shifted. Once you experience what it feels like to choose yourself, it becomes impossible to settle for anything less. I listened to her, but the urgency to repair something long fractured was gone. My focus had shifted to my own peace, my personal growth, my happiness, and the people who had always valued me. That birthday, which began in humiliation, ended up teaching me one of the most defining lessons of my life. Respect and love cannot be forced. They must come willingly. And when someone chooses not to give them, the strongest response isn't confrontation, it's walking away. Leaving that night didn't make me weak. It made me free. By the end of the month, I had reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, revived a project I'd been putting off, and rediscovered the calm I had been missing. Lena's presence faded into memory, and with it, the influence she once held over me. What had started as a painful moment at my own celebration became the turning point I needed, a reminder that protecting your dignity is always the right choice.